Hello, welcome everyone to the Leathertainment Studio podcast. Here, Tanner Leatherstein, your host. And this week we have Peter Nitz, and he is an amazing craftsman. He does bespoke pieces, hand-stitched leather bags for over, I believe, 10 years now. And in my opinion, this is one of the greatest alternatives coming up in the space in this high-end luxury leather goods. And I was lucky enough to chat with him a couple days ago just to get to know him on the phone, and we ended up talking over an hour. I guess we could have just recorded that, and that would do for an episode, but I'm just more excited what he has to offer and share with you guys here today. We're going to discuss this high-end bespoke pieces in leathercraft and how that handcrafting luxury leather goods work. So before we go any deeper, Peter, thanks for being here. First of all, thanks for agreeing and spending time with us. Can you start with sharing like who you are, what you do? We get to know you, and then we will dive into questions after that.
Sure. Thanks for having me. So I'm Peter Nitz. I'm a leather craftsman, and I started my own brand actually almost 15 years ago. I know time goes very fast. I'm based in Zurich, Switzerland, and I think you already said most of the rest. I make everything by hand. Everything is bespoke. Um, we do very high-end luxury bags. Everything is made here in Zurich, Switzerland, and yeah, I think that's the
Okay,
basics of it.
awesome. And I know you do more than that. You teach other leather craftsmen the craft work. You do have online courses. You do a lot more
Sure.
than that, and I we will get to all that stuff in the
Yeah.
questions part. So that's great. In the brief intro, we will just. I always like to start with the question like, how did you get involved with leather? We always come
Hmm.
across a really great story because this is a just interesting field. You know, people want to be teachers and doctors and all that, but I don't think anybody's dreaming of being a leather craftsman when they're a kid. But somehow they do, and the story is always interesting. So, how was yours?
Well, mine's completely by accident as well. Um, Strangely enough, since I was a little kid, I always was really drawn to exotic leathers. I don't know exactly why. I don't didn't have anyone around me, or I was not in a special situation that really exposed me to, luxury goods or exotic leathers or something. But I can remember when I was like 8, 9 years old, looking at GQ magazine and seeing ostrich skin dress shoes in there and like desperately wanting to have those. I thought they were amazing. I can remember wandering around the mall looking in the leather goods stores for elephant skin wallets and crocodile wallets. This was back in the 80s, so you could find that kind of thing like elephant skin you could find a little more easily back then. It was quite popular. So, yeah, for some reason I was always drawn to leathers, especially exotic leathers. And then after I finished university, I studied business in university. And then after I left there, I moved to Switzerland. And here I started a secondhand luxury resale business. So if you think of like the big ones now are like the Real Real and well, I don't know what some of the other ones are, but basically a resale consignment shop for high-end luxury goods. And it was all an online shop at first, but then we opened also like physical shops. So that was my kind of intro into like the luxury goods world. It kind of also just kind of happened by accident because I was living in Switzerland, wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do, but they have amazing flea markets and vintage shops here, and I was finding like vintage Hermes bags, vintage Louis Vuitton bags for like nothing. I mean, this is 25 years ago. People weren't so into luxury or into secondhand stuff here in Switzerland like they were already in the States. So I was finding these things, these amazing items at the flea markets in summer, and then I was reselling them on eBay. So that's what gave me the idea to start actually my own website and own physical store location and all that kind of thing. So that was my actual main business here for many years. Because of that business, I then was in Paris a lot because that's, of course, a great place to source vintage luxury goods. And when I was there one time, I met a craftswoman who worked for Hermes. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. That's amazing. I would love to learn how to do that. I always wanted to work with leather, but of course, I never wanted to start unless I really knew the proper way to do it because I'm such a perfectionist. If I can't do it right, I'm not going to do it at all. And she said, yeah, if you're interested, then I can like show you some of the basics. And I was like, yeah, sure, please. So she came to Zurich in the summer for a week and brought a few tools and just showed me the basics of how you saddle stitch, pricking, how you polish the edges, that kind of thing. And yeah, like it was like a mental breakdown for me or a breakthrough. I don't know what you want to call it, probably a mix of both. I just went basically crazy for it, and I wanted to do like nothing else other than make leather goods. So I was up like every night after work, working in the kitchen, just making whatever I could make, trying to figure it all out. And yeah, and that's how I got into it. It's all downhill from
It's
there,
it's
from
crazy.
that
You
day.
found your calling. It's all that coincidences lead us to the path that we meant to be, I think. But whenever you feel that joy, like you don't want to do anything else, even you have a full-time business at that time, you're trying to find time to perfect that joyous work. I think that's
Mhm.
that's the signal. You got to follow that path. So I'm glad you did. That's awesome. So what was the challenges at the beginning? It's really not that easy. And when was this? Right now, probably we can find quite a bit of information online when we want to get started with leather work, the tools, the leathers.
Mhm.
Leather was a very closed industry. You can't get just one skin. Back in the day,
Absolutely.
they were just batches and factories and brands dealing in the space. So, what was the challenges, and then how did you get over it?
Well, this was back in August of 2008 when I first started learning, and that was really kind of early internet days as well. It wasn't like you can just go on Instagram and hashtag leathercraft or hashtag edge paint or like I had no idea where to find any of this stuff. No one knew how to find any of this stuff. So I basically just had to try and find people that were either like working at Hermes or ex Hermes employees or some sort of French craftsman because this style of leatherworking is at that time and historically it's been like a very French way of working. And there was pretty much no one outside of France that was doing that kind of thing. So I was, you know, since I was in Paris anyway a lot, I like tracked down a couple small ateliers, and luckily a couple of them were very helpful in helping me find like, okay, this is linen thread that you need to use, and this is the brand, and this is edge paint that you can use, and this is the brand, and these are the kind of needles you want. This is the kind of glue. So it was a lot of like tracking this stuff down, and also then figuring out, how to order it. Like you said, lots of stuff comes in large quantities, and a lot of the brands that were producing these things were basically just doing it for Hermes because there was no one else using the stuff. So also trying to get a lot of these supplies together was difficult. So yeah, at the beginning it was like a real challenge to figure everything out, but luckily I was so crazy about it that I just didn't stop until I got it all figured out.
Yeah, that passion gives you the drive. You just get through the walls. So. And how long did
Exactly.
it take you to, get to a comfortable level that you are happy with what you're crafting from that beginning of, you know, 2008?
Um, well, I'm never happy
Oh, that's
with what I'm doing.
perfectionist.
I'm never 100% satisfied. But yeah, that's my problem with perfectionism. But I'd say I was pretty obsessed and like worked really fast. So I actually finished my first, let's call it my first collection in yeah, like early summer of 2009. So in less than a year, I had bags that I was like proud of that I would show. And actually, if I see some of these bags today, they're still pretty good. So I'm it went fast. It was like you said, like my calling. It just felt right to me because I always enjoyed making stuff. I was always creative my whole life. I never had a creative profession before. Everything I did was just for fun or for hobbies, but I never took it too far because I was never happy with what I did and never thought it was good. But suddenly with the leather work, it was
Like,
like instantaneously I understood it, I felt it, I knew what how it needed to look to be good. Yeah, so for me it went
yeah,
really
that's
quite
really
fast.
fast.
I'd say about a year I was pretty
Like
happy with
from
what I was doing.
nothing to what you described, which is quite a bit of skills to create things like that. And a year in given that time, not having that resources available like it is today, it's impressive. But again, it's the passion, it's the calling, that keyword is felt right, that's the signal I'm trying to follow always,
Right.
that's the right direction to head. So everything comes together somehow eventually when you follow it. So and
Exactly.
when you made your
Exactly.
first collection, the pieces you make, they're not, I'm assuming, I really still don't know like your price points, not then or not right now. I assume they're not cheap because, you sit down, it's from start to finish, you pour your talent into it, and it takes a lot of time and effort. So how did you find your first customers? What were their reactions and, just any experience around that area?
Well, my first mistake was thinking, okay, this is amazing. All I have to do is make bags that are amazing, better than Hermes, like top quality, and I'm gonna like sell them like crazy because from my other business, I already had all these very wealthy customers, all these fashion customers from my shop here in Switzerland and in Paris. So I knew lots of people, I knew all the ladies. So I thought, perfect, I just have to make these bags and then I can sell them to them, no problem. So when I finished my first ones, I started, showing them when they'd come into the shop. I'd say, "Hey, I'm making my own bags. You want to see?" And they'd be like, "Sure." So I would show them, and I was very excited. But I was a little bit disappointed by the reaction I got because it was more like kind of, like patting a little kid on the head, like, "Oh, that's so cute. You're making bags now." And like they weren't too excited. They thought, "Yeah, they're nice. They're cute." But no one was gonna buy anything at all. And I was kind of surprised because I knew that they were good, and because that was my business of is luxury bags. So um, then I had some very good luck that in that same summer, later in that summer, I happened to meet Olivier Lalin. He was at that time the deputy editor of French Vogue, and he asked what I was doing, and I said, "Well, I'm making bags." And I showed him pictures, and he was like, "Wow, these are really, really nice." He said, I'm doing one of the coming issues for fall is called like Extreme Luxury, and I think these bags would be perfect for them." So to explain what these bags were, the first things I was doing were exotic clutch bags, and I used real antique brooches from the Victorian time period in the shape of insects. So I had like bees and moths and butterflies, things like that. So they were like fine jewelry on crocodile bags. So they were
Unique.
pretty like high, yeah, very like luxe. All the materials were really high end. So he said, "I think this would be perfect. Let me take a few of these bags back to Paris with me to Karen Reutfeld, who was the editor at that time, and see if she likes them. And if she does, then maybe we can do something." So luckily, she did like them, and they ended up doing like a full page portrait of me with pictures of like five of the bags and text, and it was like literally mind blowing for me at that time, of course, because that's normally something you have to work up years to get and really fight to be featured in such a prominent place. So yeah, basically that was what really launched my brand for me and gave me the credibility to be able to sell. So then, like these same women were coming back who previously were just like patting me on the head, and then they were bringing friends, like, "Let me introduce you to my friend Peter Nitz. He makes the most beautiful bags." and blah blah blah. And I was like, wait, what's going on here? And that's when I realized that, yeah, sadly, as much as a craftsman, we're passionate about the quality and design and everything that we're doing, you can't build a brand just on that. And you have to pay attention to other things like marketing and building your brand and yeah, all that kind of stuff that goes with it. I mean, I was very naive at that time about all this stuff, so I kind of picked it up as I went. So that was my first big lesson about how you can start selling your bags.
Wow, that's a perfect story. I love it. Like I have a couple points that I want to go towards here, but I love how that things change overnight when you are on the Vogue, French Vogue. You know, the perception changes overnight. That's the power of marketing, and that's what actually these brands are about, right?
Absolutely.
It's not about leather or it's not about the craftsmanship. It's about the desire they create around this brand, the logo, the prestige, which is super difficult, super expensive, and we'll
Absolutely.
get to that part. But you said one thing I want to just comment on it a little bit. You said you had the luck to meet the Vogue editor and all that stuff. I think there's no luck. Like I don't
No.
believe in luck anymore. There is no miracles. Those are just the labels we use for the events that we can't explain, how that happened. And just we easily call it luck. But I think
Right.
your desire, your imagination, your hard work is calling all these avenues and possibilities into reality. And you cross paths with these people that will open the doors for you. I think you created all that stuff. It's just not luck to me. I just wanted to mention that it's your burning desire calling those things into your life.
Manifesting it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both actually. Of course, you can have bad luck and work your ass off and do everything and make wonderful stuff and just nothing happens. But I think generally, um, if you're really passionate about something and you're also open, like I'm always, going out and meeting people and connecting with other people I think are interesting and I'm not just interested in bags, I'm interested in all kinds of stuff. So I think the more open you are, the more connections you have, the more you just are open to things, then obviously you're going to come into contact with more people, and then you'll come into contact
the right
eventually with
people.
someone or someones that are right for what you're doing and at the right time. I mean, it was for me just lucky that it was I had just finished my first collection that was showable, and
No.
yeah, so it just there's for sure an element of luck to it. I mean, it's not like you just have to be open and you're running into the editor of Vogue every day, but I mean, yeah, I think the main thing is that you're really open and you're out there doing stuff, whatever. I mean, you can just sit at home or in your atelier and be making amazing stuff every day, all day, and nothing will happen because you're just not creating any extra avenues to be noticed or to come into contact with people or yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
a bit of both.
that's great point of view. I love it. So for the marketing side, I know from our previous call you said you were dealing with this high-end luxury stuff and you were a user of Hermes bags at the time. Um, So gonna
Hmm.
tie it back to the marketing, like how was it for you back then? Like why did you like Hermes and how did you use them? And did it change over time? And what was the power of marketing in this whole your experience in this high-end luxury brands?
It's interesting because I think we don't realize how strong marketing is, what a strong impact it has, how deep it reaches inside you. Of course, we all understand, yeah, obviously marketing works. That's why brands do marketing. But I don't think we really understand like how deeply ingrained that can get. I first even knew about Hermes when I was maybe 21. I was working in an auction house in Chicago, and there was something Hermes in there. And I was like, "What's this Hermes thing?" And they were all laughing, and like, "That's Hermes, not Hermes." So that was my first exposure to anything Hermes. And then, of course, I fell in love with the brand because they were doing the nicest, leather goods and had really good quality, and of course the exotic skins. Um, but it was not something that was ever like in my price range or nothing I was actively buying or anything like that. It was just kind of something I would have like the catalogs, and I remember I had like a little catalog with maybe 20 pages, and it was just all the different agendas that they had in different crocodile skins and stuff. I must have looked at that thing like a million times. Um, but then when I started my business here in Switzerland and was dealing with the vintage luxury goods, obviously then, I came a lot more into contact with all that kind of thing. And of course, the best, if you're really interested in leather, then the best out there is Hermes. They're using all the most wonderful materials and really nice designs and all that kind of thing. So I became a big fan. Um, I was always in the Hermes shop here in Zurich, not buying anything, but annoying the poor shop manager there. She was actually very, very nice, and I think she liked that I was genuinely interested in the product, so she was very patient with me, even though I didn't buy anything. Um, but yeah, so that's how I got, I guess, into really liking Hermes so much, and then buying, I bought some vintage Hermes bags for myself, and yeah, that's how I got into to it. So I guess what was the question about the
So
marketing, the
yeah, marketing
marketing
aspect,
aspect of it?
like probably,
Is
Hermes was not,
yeah,
some name that everybody on the street knew. Probably back then, even less, probably, right?
back
So
then not, absolutely not back then. Yeah, yeah. No, it was, you know, maybe here in Zurich, Switzerland, yes, because it's a very expensive country and city, and we have a lot of wealthy people here, so it's a lot more prevalent than say the middle of America where I grew up, where I mean I never heard the word Hermes in my entire life.
I think you mentioned that duffel bag you had, like you loved it because how it looked, and nobody cared
Oh yeah,
until so point, and then
exactly.
I just wanted to bring that.
Exactly. Oh, the
Yeah.
the marketing thing, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, so I was very much impressed by Hermes since my early 20s. And at some point I bought in Paris a 1960s like vintage Okowa that's like it's like a Birkin, but the original version, like the travel bag size. And it was in canvas and cognac leather. It had like the most amazing patina. It was just a super gorgeous bag. And this was probably close to 20 years ago when I was carrying it, and people used to always compliment and go, "Oh my God, your bag is so amazing. It's so beautiful." And I really enjoyed carrying it. And then as time went on, I realized people stopped saying, "I love your bag." They started saying like, "Oh my God, I love your Hermes bag." And at the beginning, fine, whatever. And then I realized at some point, like, okay, it used to be everyone just they didn't realize it was an Hermes bag. They just liked it because it was a beautiful bag. And then at some point, when Hermes became much, much more mainstream and the Birkin became like really mainstream, a lot of focus on it, then everyone would first see it as an Hermes bag and not as just a beautiful bag. So that also changed the way I thought about a few things about Hermes and about me carrying the bag. I didn't really carry it so much anymore after that because it it felt to me like, I don't want people to think, oh, he's carrying this bag because it's Hermes and he thinks he's fancy or something. I really just, it's just a beautiful bag. But so anyway, it's interesting just how um, marketing, how it affects you, but also how it affects other people. So people then didn't, of course, they probably thought it was a beautiful bag, but initially they were more impressed with how beautiful it was. Later, people were impressed because it was Hermes and not just because it was a
Right,
beautiful
and it
bag.
changes
So,
the way you feel about carrying the bag, and that's exactly a perfect point I want to discuss here.
absolutely,
And
absolutely.
I understand it, and a lot of these brands customers understand it. Well, some people are sometimes confused because of the marketing too. Most of the people now, especially nowadays, they go to these brands because of that service, right? That prestige that comes with the bag. Carrying that bag tells outside world, hey, I'm accomplished. I can carry a $15,000 bag on my shoulder. And that's the message. That's not a
Right.
sentence you can out loud say about you, but you have a desire, you might want to show it off. Some people they do, and some they don't. Like probably that's why they kind of ruin the bag for you because people start thinking you're trying to show off with it instead of the beauty of the bag. So that kind of separates two mindsets in that marketing, high-end
Right.
luxury, and it's all about that these days. And I call it an engineered luxury, right? They engineer this luxury through marketing, through celebrities, and a lot of things. Again, it starts with super high quality craftsmanship, but eventually it moves into this um, like status symbol and prestige stuff. It may ruin it for some people.
Right.
And when you're starting with those brands, people want to carry those because of that exclusivity engineered by the brand with price, with limitations. You know, they don't even sell you that bag initially, right? There's a lot of games, especially in US, I believe you need
Right.
to play to be honored by offered a Birkin or something. And that creates that illusion and distance from people. Like even if I wanted to pay that money, you know, I can't get it. So I have more desire towards it now. So, but at some point it becomes a thing that anybody almost can get it, right? Is it at that point now for Hermes, like those circles, super wealthy families, they go to events, they're all around each other. And now they go look around and it's
Right.
really not that special anymore. Or is it still there's some like gist to it?
Oh, you could write like a dissertation on this topic because it's so deep and involved, and there's so many nuances to it and so many layers. But I think there's kind of like aspirational levels. So maybe you have a teenage girl that she wants to have a guest bag. And so she saves, she's 13, she saves her money, she gets a guest bag. And then when she's 15, 16, she wants her first Louis Vuitton bag. And so she gets the monogram bag. And then maybe she's 18, 19, she wants a Gucci bag. That's the next level, you know. And then when she's a little bit older, she wants to be a bit more ladylike. And then she gets a Chanel bag. And then it progresses. Um, it can be different. It depends on what social circles you live in, which country you live in, what's considered like on what level and what comes next. But I've found that people generally um, move up this ladder of progressing from one brand to the next that as it, as they reach different aspirational levels, whether that means they're earning more money so they can afford more expensive, or whether that means their taste has changed or changes. So they go from more youthful things that are less expensive to more sophisticated things, like maybe I don't know, like what's the word? Hold on, I've just lost my train of thought. Um,
Unique.
anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
they're moving up. Yeah, something more unique, something more special, whatever. So people go through these stages, and I think Hermes, for obviously it's like the ultimate
Yeah.
luxury good, let's say, generally speaking, in the mainstream. But you have to imagine that there's a lot of people out there with a lot of money who run in social circles where everyone has a lot of money, which means they all have these bags. And they've become very popular in the last like 10, 15 years, like extremely popular. So now it's really like let's say everyone has them, especially in these circles. So a lot of people are getting bored with that because it's kind of like you have to have them because you got to show, I'm in this, I'm of this status and I need to have a Birkin. Um, but at some point, maybe you're bored because the other 20 women at that dinner party also have a Birkin. But then again, there are some people that
Right.
like that, that like the fact that, okay, I'm at this event and I have an Hermes bag and all the other ladies have an Hermes bag and it's great
We're a
because
group.
we're like all the same we're group, yeah. So again, it's all very individual. There are some people that also just that's their nightmare. They don't want to have the same thing everyone else wants to have, and then that's where my
Well,
customers come
exactly.
in. That's usually who's buying my bags.
That's my next step. Like for those people who doesn't want to have everybody has, and the people who doesn't have any problem with money, it's not the problem that Hermes is so expensive or anything. They just don't want to have something that everybody can get or have around, regardless how much it costs. And kind of like one of a kind things, they just enjoy it, and maybe a subtleness of it too. Like if you get something else truly special, maybe super expensive, but other people don't know it because marketing is not there. So what are the alternatives for those people?
Generally, what the majority of those individuals are doing are buying the limited edition pieces of Hermes or the limited edition pieces of Louis Vuitton, or maybe they're going to some newer brands that are kind of on the same level but not as well known, like Moynat or Goyard or something like that, or they're looking for. I noticed vintage pieces. Like at the beginning when I had my vintage shop, my Middle Eastern customers would never touch anything vintage. They only wanted brand new because we also sold lots of, resold lots of brand new Birkins and brand new Hermes bags since they're so hard to get. Um, but I saw that change after a while. A lot of these Middle Eastern customers, after several years, they all had all these new Hermes bags, and all their friends all had them, and they wanted something special that no one else had, but there's like nothing else to have to go up another level. So then they started buying vintage because then you could find like, a 1960s Hermes bag that you're for sure going to go to a party and no one else is going to have that or even know that model. Or you buy, like a 1980s Kelly that was in a weird combination of leathers or colors that you can't get nowadays. So that's the way they moved from having something unique but still Hermes is going the
I
vintage
see.
route. So I think for a lot of people, it's just finding stuff within the luxury market that it's just different or limited or vintage or hard to find or not as well known. That seems to be like the next progression or the next stage after Hermes
Absolutely.
itself.
And now it's kind of a nice leadway to my next topic here. There's a crazy increase interest to the leather crafting, as I see in the past 5 to 10 years. A lot of people want to get involved with leather crafting, want to know how this works. Some of them make it as a hobby, learn it as a hobby. Some of them turn this into a side hustle, try to start
Hmm.
their own brands. And it makes me really happy. And I have my theories of why this is happening. We're kind of looking at the screens all day long. A lot of work becomes so digital, and we are human beings. We like to play with our hands and do something physical too. I think woodworking is leatherworking are some outlets for this like desire that we're not finding outlet these days from technological work, and probably this is one way they're trying to satisfy it. So in this new trend, there's two questions. There is new alternatives coming up to those people who are looking for truly unique pieces like yourself. You're making bespoke pieces, you're using all kind of exotics, everything is hand stitched, maybe even designs according to whatever they want. Of course, expensive, it takes time to create those, there's a weight involved and all that stuff. But people like you, I keep seeing on Instagram trying to craft this amazing one-of-a-kind pieces. They're becoming an alternative to Hermes level crafts in the
Hmm.
space for those people. What do you think about that?
I think it's amazing. Obviously, I've seen it grow exponentially from when I started on Instagram. There was just a few leather crafters, and it just kept getting to be more and more and more and more. And that's why I ended up doing my tutorials and selling supplies and all that kind of stuff and teaching classes because I had people who were interested in learning that asking me, hey, can you help me? Can you tell me how to do this? And of course, I was very willing to be helpful because I knew personally how frustrating it is when you want to learn this and you're excited about it and there's no information out there. So I started off helping people get started in leathercraft, and yeah, that led to doing in-person classes and the tutorials and all that stuff. But in the meantime, I mean, it's incredible how many people are doing leather crafting and how many amazing people or amazing stuff people are doing. It's really insane. So yeah, I think it's a great thing, and I think I know from a lot of my students, they're people that are maybe in their 40s, 50s, early 60s who their whole life they had, desk jobs or non-creative jobs, successful jobs, but not necessarily fulfilling in a creative way. And they just stop and they say, I need to do something that like I can see, at work I'm working, 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 but I never see like a final
Yeah.
result of something. And I want to do something where I'm pouring energy into it, and then I have something at the end I can say, hey, this is amazing. All the effort I put into it,
It's
this
something.
is it. It exists. So I have a lot of professionals that come and take courses because they want to learn something where they can, express their creativity, and it's a totally different feeling to create something and have an object in the end. It's different than if you're,
It's coding.
I don't know, accounting, you're doing paperwork, or, you're a doctor, you treat someone and then they go off and you never see them again or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't see the same, it's not the
I
same kind
agree.
of
I think
feeling.
it's that tangible, like holdable product of your hard work is very satisfactory. And working with a
Hmm.
natural material like leather, the process becomes a joy too. Like wood, I have both tendencies. I love working wood too. So I think
Hmm.
it's a great outlet for anybody who might want to find something that's physical. So this trend makes me so happy because it's happening in all industries. Like internet is democratizing everything, right? Before you had to be Hermes, you had to have a distribution channel, design, operations, tanneries, connections to be able to have a brand like that, a business like that. But now with internet, you don't need anything.
Right.
You just need a desire and willingness to learn. You buy everything online, you get your courses, you learn the craft, you come maybe one-on-one with you. You sit down, you pour your talent into, and you create something. And if you're, depending on how hard you work or
Hmm.
how creative you are, you can truly surpass Hermes like in a year or so, like in your case here. So, and boom, you're a business. If you want to make it happen, you can make it happen. It, it's not, it's
Right.
not that easy, but yeah,
Boom,
so
you're in
this
business.
is this wasn't possible 10 years ago, and now it's giving possibility to
Right.
all these new people. I think enriching the way we experience leather. There's a lot more options. There's a lot more designs out there, and some of them provide a lot more value than just the prestige. So for people who really look for um, quality goods, I think it's just going to keep getting more and more rich space for us to enjoy leather, in my opinion. That makes me really happy. Just in every chance I get, I would like to, you know, mention that. So, any favorite crafters or brands in the space that you notice they are doing great job, at any price point it could be or any level.
Oh God, there's a lot of them. I might get in trouble by mentioning some and not mentioning others.
Whatever, comes top of your mind, probably
But
they're really good.
there's a lot of, some of my favorite ones are some of the Japanese ones. Um, yeah, there's some of my students, former students, are doing really, really amazing stuff. There's there's really like a lot of people doing some crazy good stuff out there.
Okay. Okay, then
So
let's
I
skip
don't know if I
naming
should
them.
mention it.
Yeah,
I'm
if you
not,
don't feel
I don't have a problem. It's not like I just don't want I don't want to like mention some people and leave other people out. But I mean, there's so many out there. You could just go to my Instagram and see who I'm following,
okay,
and
I
then you
see. Yeah,
can
that's a good tip. Like
find out what I like.
I'll do that for myself. I just checked your courses earlier today. I found some really exciting stuff. I'm gonna get some of them and start learning from you too. And
Cool.
that service, let's talk about that a little bit. A lot of people trying to come into space and they're trying to find knowledge, information, techniques. So you do that teaching. What do you offer? How do you do that? If you want to introduce that a little bit to people who might be interested in?
I started off first by offering in-person one-on-one courses, just because that's what people started asking me for that, and so that's what I did. But of course, that can be pretty expensive because you've got to travel here. Most of the students are not from Switzerland anyway, so you have the expense of flying here, the hotel, training with me. You got to take off work, leave your kids, all that kind of stuff. So for a lot of people, it's just not really feasible to come here for a week. And that's what gave me the idea to do tutorials, because it's a much more cost efficient way and a lot more practical because then you can work on your own time whenever you want. And yeah, and the tutorials, I hold back on nothing. I teach the exact same stuff that I teach in my in-person classes. So I think they're a really great way for people to learn. So I do that, and then I also do some group courses. Originally, the plan was to kind of do like a little world tour, going from big city to big city at guest ateliers, teaching 3 day long courses, but that got canceled because of COVID. The only one that we did was in The Hague because that one was already like fully booked and planned, and it actually worked out that the dates were between lockdowns, so it actually worked out. So I did that there, and then we did it again the second time, but we didn't book any other cities because it was like, no one knew what was happening. It was all too uncertain. So, and then in the meantime, I've moved to a new location with my atelier, opening a boutique and everything. So at the moment, I'm not planning any touring, teaching classes, but I have had one group course in my new atelier here in Zurich, and I'm in the future going to offer more group courses as well. So, and more tutorials.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for doing that. It's a great service you're offering. You're sharing your knowledge, which is, your core strategic advantage, but, you know, you're doing a lot for the leather community. I truly appreciate it, and I'm gonna start benefiting from it from the courses. At the earliest chance I find some time to sit down and, you know, immerse myself into that learning mode, which is so fun. So, what makes a great bag? Huh?
They're
What?
helpful.
Yeah.
I even watch my own courses because sometimes you don't make something for a while. You're like, okay, how do I do that? So I just throw on one of my own, like, okay, I need to do perlage again. How do I do that? So I just watch my own course,
Well,
perlage,
that
then it comes back to me.
that's perfect. That speaks a lot about the course. You're like, oh, let me go to Peter that who knew this really good back then and then learn from him.
Yeah, if you're not doing, stuff that you're doing every single day, obviously you don't forget, but some techniques you're using once a year or once every 6 months or something, and then, it um you forget it, or you forget it until you're forced to try it again, and then you make the whole thing and you're like, okay, it didn't turn out so great, but now I know how to do it. Let me do it a second time, so it's perfect. So it can save a lot of hassle that way.
That's brilliant. So, what makes a great bag in that hand stitch space? How difficult it is? How long it takes to make a bag? Let's say a Birkin or a Kelly, like that size, that complexity. What can you tell about that? Like what it takes to make one?
Oh, those are not complicated bags at all to make. I mean, construction wise, the Birkin and Kelly is
Mm.
very simple. I mean, the handle on a Kelly bag is a real skill that takes, you know, uh, that's the hardest thing to make on the bag. But otherwise, the constructions of the bags are quite simple. They're not so complicated.
No, it's interesting. Well, maybe it's it's simple to you, but from outside people, they might still see it very complicated. And let's say,
No, I think the basic. I mean, let's say this. Um, Construction wise, it's not complicated. So let's take a Birkin. What is it? You have 5 panels of leather, the front, back, the two gussets in the bottom. It's basically a box. You sew in the piping,
right.
You sew on the handles, you sew on the flap. It's if you have all the skills to do like great saddle stitching, if you know the techniques for doing piping, if you know how to do the reinforcements, if you know how to do edge finishing, you can absolutely make that bag. It's not like a magic a magic thing that only Hermes can make. It's a pretty basic construction for a bag.
That's beautiful.
That's what I always tell my students when they start. When they start, I say, if you learn like the core techniques, so pricking, stitching, edge finishing, handle making, skiving, like if you really master those, then you can pretty much make anything. Then it's just a matter of what your designs are. If you understand how to reinforce, do the reinforcements inside bags, it's just understanding the basic concepts of it and practicing and learning the techniques, and then basically you can do whatever you want. It's actually not that complicated in the end.
Perfectly said. So I want people to hear it from someone who's truly expert in the space. You know, crafting and stitching bags are not my expertise. I don't know how to do it. I'm coming from the tannery background. I love and live for leather, but hearing this from you who does this is so invaluable to me for the audience here. So then here's just one question. I keep getting a lot, but I'm not entertaining at the moment for personal principles. They say, can you get a fake Hermes and then compare it to the real ones? Sometimes the real kind of platforms reach out. Hey, can we send you one of these? They call it super fakes. You know, it's really difficult for them to authenticate sometimes.
Hmm.
Can we send it to you and then you side by side compare and
Right.
make an analysis on it? I refuse them because I am like super opposed to the idea of fake because you know no matter what brand you're replicating, it's ethically wrong and we cannot even generalize that one of them might be doing an amazing job but the other guy is not. So fakes is not a brand. Fakes is a bunch of different people with kind of different moral codes. So I'm not gonna inspect the fake bag, but what do you think about the fakes of these high-end luxury bags? And you have been in this business, you know, you authenticated a lot of used bags probably in your time. So how does that work?
Yeah, I authenticated bags all the time in my other business, and that's actually one of my specialties because I'm so detail oriented, and so I like know what to look for. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, if it has a date stamp or doesn't have a date stamp, it's fake. Or, like, one time there was a Kelly bag and it had a plastic zipper inside, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, someone told me it's fake. I'm like, No, no way in hell. This bag is 100%. I'd like bet my life on it because I looked at it, looked at the leather, looked at how it was made. The only thing that was off is that it had like a nylon zipper on the pocket inside, which is very bizarre. But I was like, no, I bought it. I'm like, okay, it's fake, sure. I'll buy it anyway. But then I talked to someone at Hermes and they checked it out, and there was apparently one year in like 1972 where they were using a nylon zipper inside because it was modern and whatever. So I was like, okay, good, great.
Confirm
So
yourself.
um, that's with the authentication. It's um, a lot of people think it's like, oh, you just check for a date code, or, if this thing isn't like this, or if the engraving isn't exactly like this. Yes and no. The thing is, Hermes also, it's not like they produced, 100 million little, metal plaques for the Kelly and Birkin that they're using into eternity, and they're all identical. No, they have production runs as well. Over the years, they change how the engraving is very slightly. Sometimes it's a bit thicker, sometimes it's thinner, sometimes it's deeper. So there are variations. Sometimes the zipper stop on the end is different. Sometimes it's a little H. Sometimes, if they're older ones, it's just a normal square. Um, the authentication can be really, really tricky these days because there's such good leather crafters out there now, and there's so much money into doing the fakes. Oftentimes, you can tell a fake because it's too well made, like the entire bag is saddle stitched, and the entire Hermes bag is not saddle stitched at all. So if you know which parts Hermes saddle stitches, which part they machine stitch, then you can check that against a bag that's maybe a fake, and that can tell you possibly one way or the other whether it's real or not. So there are basically these days the only way to tell between a real and a fake one is to know exactly the construction details. Forget about like how the stamp is and what the date code and all that stuff, because all that stuff, that's the easiest thing to fake. Receipts, you can order fake Hermes receipts from China. You can have everything. The boxes, the dust bags, everything, they get the same suppliers for the dust bags as Hermes has. You can fake all that stuff perfectly. So you just need to know really exactly how Hermes does the construction, how they've done it differently over the years, that kind of thing.
It's
So
a
yeah, it's a tricky thing, the authentication. Like I recently had a client come to me. I had sold her a red crocodile Birkin about 15 years ago, 15 years ago. Um, and she just recently took it to a big auction house here. I won't say which one, but one of the big, one of the very big ones in the world. And they told her it was a fake, so they wouldn't sell it. And so she called me upset because, I had sold it to her 15 years ago. I said, I promise you, I said, come to the atelier. I'll have a look at it with you, but I promise you that it's not fake. So she brought it in and then we looked at it and she told me like what they told her, why it was fake and blah, blah. I'm like, oh my God, this expert there should not be giving out any information at all because everything that they're saying was like just so wrong, like so absolutely wrong. Um, but yeah, that's a problem because then they half the time, I don't say half the time, but occasionally fakes will come through and be sold on the real real or whatever or at auction houses and they don't
right,
know. Other times they
the
turn
real
away
ones.
authentic stuff
Yeah,
because they don't
it's
know.
super interesting.
Authenticating is a very it's a very very um, it's a very tricky thing and you really need to have someone needs to really, really, really understand what they're talking about, not just for Hermes, but for example, I would never authenticate a Balenciaga bag because like the classic Balenciaga bag with the fringe that was been made for like the last 20 years, they in order to authenticate that bag, you need to know every single year, like what colors were produced, and with that color, which rivet colors were used, and what leather with which rivet colors. And it's like, because those bags are so perfectly faked, you can't tell otherwise. They can make them identical. So the only way to do that is if you really are someone that have you educated yourself like 1,000,000% and you're focused just on that. So I, in the past when I had my business, I would give my opinion that like to me it looks like it's real, but I would never give a 100% because that wasn't my specialty.
Yeah, that
But yeah, authentication is a very tricky thing.
sounds like a deep, deep world in itself. So that's crazy. And I know some people work in this part of the business, in their hidden ateliers. They make fake stuff, and that's how they make their living. I'm no one to judge who makes it, who buys it. It's their own thing. And why people get into this because the margin, the money is huge, right? It's almost like printing money. Paper doesn't
Of
cost so
course,
much, and paper is readily available. Hermes leathers, the same leathers they use,
of
they also have tanneries. You can buy it. You
course,
can buy the Togo, you can buy the things, and sometimes even you can buy cheaper stuff because they sold the remnants at a really lower cost, and some people buy exactly same leathers that they were using for production and do those
hmm
for fakes. So
of course.
again, well, that was very interesting though. I didn't know any of those details about authentication, and I had no clue, but that's very interesting. Thanks for sharing. And I believe you have someone from Hermes in your team, right? Julian? Julian.
Yeah,
So,
Julian. Yep. Yep. He worked 5 years at Hermes, making mainly Birkins and Kellys, and I think he also made the Constants a lot
okay, so you
there.
kind
Yeah.
of have some form of insider information too. I have some questions if you feel comfortable, some of it. And this trend, internet making this opportunity for anyone who knows this business and has a passion to create their own brand. Like, what stops some of those artisans that worked at Hermes to start their own business lines and like you think more and more of them will be going that route at some point instead of just working for a salary, they go create their own lines and then they become their own brands. What do you think? What do you
Mm.
and Julian think about this?
That's one reason Julian came to work for me because at Hermes, it's not like, they promote it like, one artisan creates the bag from beginning to end, and that's not true. There's like a cutting atelier where they like cut all and prepare all the pieces. There's a machine stitching atelier. There's like all these different, everything is like sectioned off into different departments. So, for example, when an Hermes craftsman like Julien, at the beginning of the week, he would get 4 boxes, each box with the parts for, let's say, 4 Kelly bags. And by the end of the week, he would have those 4 Kelly bags assembled. So, I mean, he wasn't skiving stuff, he wasn't machine stitching stuff, he wasn't cutting out any leather. Of course, there's some parts, that, okay, I'm going to cut this, I'm going to hand skive this, little detail here and there, but it's more assembly. It's not the same like we do it here, where
Yeah.
we literally, like go to the shelf and pull off a roll of leather and start making the bag, and then at the very end, you're finished. It's, I mean, that's just logical. Of course, it's a big company. They have to make the process efficient. Otherwise, I mean, it's just for a big company that would be almost impossible to do. Let's say for a publicly traded company or for a company that has shareholders, the shareholders would not like it if
Nope,
it
they
was run
wouldn't.
that way. So, you know, so they have to streamline production,
Right.
let's say. So,
So some of those artisans,
yeah.
you
Well,
think some of them may be looking into their, yeah.
oh, about starting their own. Well, people do that. I mean, a lot of craftsmen I know have done that, have worked at Hermes, and at some point said, "Hey, I'm not happy like this. I want to, I feel like could be more creative, having my own brand or working on my own, creating things." So, I mean, I know like craftsmen that just do um, let's say unique pieces for the runway shows in Paris. So for the different big brands, they know like, okay, Kenzo needs 3 belts for the runway, so they make these 3 one-off pieces that are just for the runway for them. And a lot of artisans work this way in Paris with the brands. So yeah, a lot of
I
people have
see.
done that. But a lot of what keeps people from doing it as well is it's a hard path to start your own brand and to find customers and to sell your products,
Not everyone gets a lucky break
to
like
make a
you there,
living.
right?
To make a living. Exactly. No, I mean, that's what I always tell everyone when they want my advice is I say, don't think it's easy, because selling something to people let's say you're going to sell a cheap product, no worries. You can always, you can talk a lot, convince people, sell it, whatever. It's $5, $10, $20. If you're good at selling, you can sell whatever. But if you're doing something like leatherworking, it's inherently expensive because the material the leather is just not cheap. Your time is expensive, and that's what's taking up, everyone knows who's doing this. A bag is going to take you 1 to 2 weeks if it's complicated. A wallet is going to take you a few days. Even something simple is at least going to take you a day. So it's taking a lot of time away and materials. So you would think, or a lot of people think, that, okay, I should be able to ask an expensive price for this because I've, put all of my energy and creativity and time, and it's great materials and it's well made. But sadly, people don't see that. Or
Yeah.
let's say 99.9% of people don't see that, and that's not what gives the consumer the value, or it doesn't give all the value. It's certainly a part of the value, but it's not what is going to make someone give you, 500, 1,000, or 5,000 for a
Yes.
bag. That all comes with the marketing and the branding and creating, yeah, the whole image and story of your brand. So, and that takes time. So at the beginning, that's why I always tell people, if you want to do it, go ahead. I mean, I did it, but you have to be 100%, committed to it because it is a very hard road if you want to make a living from it.
Exactly. It's definitely not easy and takes a lot, especially at those price points, selling those bags. Because the game changes
Right.
significantly. It's not about the quality of craftsmanship anymore. Most of the people can't even recognize it. It's they're buying something else, and they rather buy it from Hermes at that point.
Of course.
So um,
Of course.
you gave some times for like a bag may take a week or two. Like you said, Kelly and Birkin is not that complicated. How long do you think a Kelly and Birkin might take to make someone who efficiently learned the skills, do you think?
Like from like
Yeah,
fully
be
from
beginning
beginning
to
to
like let's
end
say you put the
without
roll
without without the yeah, without the shoulder strap,
5 days.
5 days.
Okay, now this for reference, personal, and it's kind of fun facts
Yeah.
for the audience. Thank you.
If you have someone pre-cutting and preparing all the parts for you, then you can make four in 5 days.
Yes, that's true, and that's
Like
how
they do
they
at
do it.
Hermes.
Probably like 15, 20 hours would be
Right,
enough for someone to assemble one, given everything is prepared beforehand, which is how it's done. So
right.
I don't know if you have any information about this, but and it's kind of like outside of the topic, or you might not want to share. Do you know how much or how Hermes pays to their artisans who makes these bags?
Well, it's I don't think it's a big secret because they have, a lot of craftsmen. I don't know how many they have at this point, but like last time I heard years ago they had like 1,500 craftsmen, so I'm assuming they have a lot more by this point. But I know that it's something around 1,700 euros a month.
17. That's a lot less than what I thought, I think. Wow. Okay.
Yep.
Well, again, these are, yeah.
But it's up from before when back when I was learning. I know my teacher was earning 1,200 euros a month
Wow.
back
I really
15
think
years ago.
leather craftsman
So
deserves to get paid more. I really think like it's insane.
I think all the leather craftsmen working there also
Like
think that.
I'm 100% with them, and it's great that more people get to hear and know these. Maybe it improves at some point. So thanks for sharing that too. It was super. Like to me, it was a big secret. So I didn't know anything before, and I didn't do much research. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay,
So
yeah.
for the audience, like we answered a lot of questions. I know we're above an hour now. I don't want to keep you a lot longer here too. How does people
Oh, no
tell
worries.
good leather crafts without cutting and burning them like I do in the channel? So like, what is your like quick tips for just the regular leather customer who thinks they don't know anything about leather?
Well, it's funny because Julian and I always laugh about this because we see now everything like so crazy in detail that sometimes we like lose all like normal perspective of how something should look. We think like everything looks like shit because we're always trying to make everything so perfect. Um, and sometimes you have to be like, okay, it's not shit. It's normal. It's very nicely made. It's commercial. It's whatever. It's okay. So it's somehow when you're in it, you lose perspective of what's normal. But I see from lots of my students or lots of my, actually more from my clients, let's say customers, when they come in and they order a bag from me and then they get the bag or during the process of making the bag, I show them what the details are, what's nice, what to look for in other bags, like what makes Peter Nitz special, stitching details, edge finishing details, construction details. They always come back to me later and say, "Oh my God, I just looked at all the bags in my closet and they're all horribly made. I can't carry these bags anymore." So I think a huge part of it is it's just education. People can't tell you, "Hey, is this Gucci bag good quality or not?" They don't know. It's a good bag, it's Gucci, or it's a good bag, it's Chanel. You know that very well that that's not necessarily true. By cutting up and burning stuff, you
Right.
found that out. But you can also, if you explain to people things to look for and to understand, like this is good, this is not good, this is not really acceptable for a luxury item to have like edge paint all over the place or stuff peeling off or stuff's on crooked or whatever, all that kind of stuff. As soon as people start to get an eye for that, then they very quickly can understand the quality for themselves. It's basically just, it's like anything, it's exposure and education, and then
Yeah,
it's learning.
learning.
Then you start to see for yourself. But I think most people now, it's like such a mystery kind of thing for most people that they're never. I mean, there's nowhere where you in school you're not taught about leather goods, or at work you don't learn about leather. It's not like something you normally come into contact with. So that's why brands spend so much on marketing to make you believe that their product is superior. And then you just automatically think like, oh, I just bought this Prada bag for 2000. It's
I
amazing
did.
quality because it was 2000 and Prada's a luxury brand. So and I'm not saying all luxury brands are making bad products, not at all, but they can greatly vary. Like a lot of brands will have things in their product line which are really, really nice, really nicely made, but then they'll also have something that's just like really badly made. That can be due to different factories, different production lines, different models, whatever. So a lot of it is just yeah, educating yourself. But I think a lot of people are starting to, I think because there's been such great price increases lately,
Oh yeah.
I see especially with Chanel, a lot of people online complaining. They're starting to be a little bit more critical of the quality because they're like, hey, I bought this bag 5 years ago for half the price, literally half the price. It actually didn't seem to get any better. In fact, I think it got a bit worse because the one I had from 10 years ago is still super nice, and the one I bought last season is faded and threads are coming out. So what's going on here? So I think people are getting a bit more critical, and also things like TikTok, people like you and other people saying, like calling out this stuff brings it to the attention of other people that might not be thinking about it or might have noticed a little bit, but didn't want to question the quality or couldn't imagine, no, it's Louis Vuitton, it must be good. I don't know why the leather is wrinkling there, but I mean, it must be okay because it's Louis Vuitton. So I think all of this social media stuff is really helping to educate people a lot more for the
I
brands.
think so. I think so. There is much more information for everybody to just utilize while making those decisions. I think eventually the space is going to get better. And I really love all the insights you provided here. That was very helpful. It just made me think maybe one day I just grab one of these, Hermes bags and come to your atelier. We cut it up together. I let you judge the craftsmanship, which you we probably will be cursing to these brands, and a lot more than I do because I'm not as perfectionist on that end. I get very offended when I get into the leather a little bit. So I take the leather part to comment on it. So that might be an interesting dissection episode we can do together maybe at some point.
Sure. I mean, leather is a very interesting thing. That's a whole other topic itself because some leathers that are being used in the top brands, even at Hermes, are not
Oh
that
my God.
amazing of leather, but it's because that's what people want. So that's what they're supplying them with. Because like I think you and I both like a true real leather, like it has a nice top grain, almost no
I'm just patting one
pigmentation,
here.
no coating. It so and we all know that that's going to scratch easily. It's going to get a patina. You're going to see marks on it. But that's what is really nice about leather. But a lot of people don't want to have that. They want it to look brand new all the time. So in order to have that, you need to have a certain level of pigmentation or coating on the surface. And the more coating you have, the more it's going to keep its brand new look, but the more you're going to sacrifice with the natural qualities of leather. So it's kind of like a trade-off, one for the other, which is why the brands are sometimes using what maybe people that are really into leather or understand leather would think are horrible or not so great because they don't have these great characteristics. But in the end, it's what the customer wants because you can have it in the rain, you can scratch it, you're not going to see the mark, it's not going to stain. So
Very well said.
yeah,
Perfectly
that's
explained. I
another
try to
topic.
tell this to people at all times. It's at the end of the day personal choice. As you said, I love those leathers. But I understand in the comments I keep seeing like, if you can make a leather that's not going to get stained with water and scratched and I can easily clean, unless it's that way, I'm not buying. That's why Hermes and Louis Vuitton is going that way, using a lot of those leathers. I was in Real the other day. I'm trying to get a Hermes Evelyn, and first time I've seen their Epsom leather. By the way, I've never seen it before. Like, there's not enough money you can pay me to carry that bag around. That's to me, it's plastic. Like I don't want to touch things like that. But Togo is a different story.
I have a love-hate relationship with
So,
Epsom.
but I understand who loves it.
I used to hate it,
Well,
but I like
so
it.
I am, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a like Epsom for me. I used to hate it because it's embossed leather. It's heavily coated. However, on the other hand, it does wear a bit better, and it is wonderful to work with because it has such like
Yeah.
a bit of a rigidity to the leather. So you can work in like it comes out really crisp. It's really nice. So Epsom has grown on me. But what I will say when customers are asking me for advice with leathers, I say, look, if you have two bags, one you have like a natural
Hmm.
box calf, and then you have one like Epsom. So at the beginning, carrying your Epsom one for a few years, it's going to look better. Let's say if you're worried about scratches and stuff, it's going to look better than your box calf because that's going to get scratch. It's going to get water blisters from the rain. So it might look maybe not so amazing for the first couple of years you have it if that kind of thing bothers you. But in time, if you carry it longer, that box calf one is going to have an amazing patina. The leather is really durable. It's going to look just gorgeous. Even if you really beat it up, it's going to look great. The Epsom leather, after many years and really using, it's gonna look like trash. That's just that's just how it is. So as long as the customer understands, what the different options are for the leather characteristics, then they can decide what they want. So I don't want to say like, Epsom is inferior to box calf, even though I would personally think for what I appreciate in leather, I would rather have box calf for like a long-term bag than Epsom. But I must say, I also like working with Epsom, and it does look very beautiful and does keep a certain look. And if you're careful with it, it looks fantastic. So yeah, it's just a matter of
Very well
preference, I guess.
explained. Those natural, like true to the leather's nature, finished articles wear in and age into vintage, beautiful pieces. The other ones wear out. They start getting old, crackling, and just becomes an old piece, not a vintage thing that you might cherish. But again, there's benefits to carrying that in the first
Yeah,
5, 10 years, maybe if you're into that kind of stuff. So whatever you're trying to do, whatever tastes, I'm not judging anybody for it. I'm just putting the perspective. As long as they understand what it is, that's my goal. You make better decisions for
exactly,
yourself.
exactly.
Well, this was amazing. I really, really enjoyed the conversation. Like, look, an hour, 15 minutes now.
Yeah, me too.
I truly appreciate all the insights, beautiful stories you offered here. Anything else you might want to add? Before I'm going to ask you, like, where people find you, your services, how do they order back from you? How do they get your courses, in-person courses, just addresses, Instagram handles, and things like that? And anything else you want to add?
So my website for the bags for the brand is peternitz.com. If you want to order a bag, everything is custom made. We don't carry any stock, so you can either send me an email via the website or you can WhatsApp me from my Instagram profile. My number's on there, or you can send me a number through Instagram. My Instagram is either Peter Nitz or for the brand, or for if you want to see like all the workings and the bigger Instagram account I have is Atelier Peter Nitz. Um, and also the other website I have is atelierpeternitz.com, and that's where you'll find all the tutorials, all the information about the courses, all the supplies that you might need. I don't carry a huge range of supplies. I just try and carry some things that are kind of more difficult to find, like very specific double-sided tapes or very specific reinforcements that aren't really available or
Mhm.
harder to find. So I like to carry a few of those things just to make them accessible to people. So yeah, those are the two websites and the two Instagram accounts, and that's it. If you want to order a bag, you can just contact me, and then we just discuss what you want, and then I'll make it.
Awesome, awesome, really great. We're gonna make sure to put the handles, the links to these posts. It's gonna be on different platforms. And I truly appreciate everything you do for the leather community, like amazing work on the crafting side and sharing your knowledge, making things accessible on your website. So
Thanks.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate everything you do and spending the time here with us. I'll be in touch personally, and you're just great human being, great friend. I am gonna try my best to stop by at some point in Zurich, which I've never been before.
Sounds good. Good. I
Awesome.
look
Thank
forward
you,
to it.
Peter.